The $80,000 party was thrown using the very trust fund my grandfather left for me. From that moment on, I knew I hadn't just been excluded from a party, I'd been erased from the family. And if they thought I'd stay quiet like every other time, they were wrong. That night, I was standing in the kitchen of my small apartment in Seattle, my face blurred behind the steam rising from a pot of risotto. I remember it vividly. The scent of melting butter still lingered in the air. The phone on the counter buzzed, just once, a gentle vibration, a message. I wiped my hands on the kitchen towel, picked it up, and read, "Hey, just a heads up. The guest list's kinda tight. Hope you understand. Kin." I read it 3 times, just stood there, still holding the wooden spoon, the soles of my feet frozen against the cold tile. I didn't know what I was hoping for. Another message, an explanation, or maybe just some sign that I still mattered. Nothing else came. No apology. No, "You can swing by later." Just a message cold enough to make me feel like a stranger. I called Dad, hands trembling, voice unsteady. He picked up quickly, like he'd been expecting it. "Don't blow this out of proportion, Amy," he said with a long sigh. "It's just a get-together." Just a get-together? Then why did it feel like my heart was breaking into pieces? I tried to keep my voice steady. "I'm Kin's sister, the one who sent him hundreds of dollars for snacks while he was stationed in Kuwait, the one who stayed up all night listening to him cry on FaceTime, and I don't deserve a spot at this get-together." He was silent for a while. Then came his cold reply. "Celine's organizing it. Budget's tight. You know how she handles things. She can't invite everyone." Ah, Celine. The perfect sister. Great at planning. Knows how to prioritize the budget. And me, the overly sensitive, always too much, always making things a problem older sister. I hung up as he added the final blow. Don't ruin the party over something this small. I didn't cry, but something inside me died. Quietly, I opened my laptop. Not to write a scathing email, not to speak up, but to search for one thing: escape. I typed into a flight booking site. Hawaii, too humid. Miami, too crowded. Then I saw it. Colorado. Breckenridge. Snow-covered. Fireplaces crackling. A place where no one knew who I was. I booked everything. First-class flight, private cabin, ski lessons, all of it. If there was no place for me at their table, I'd create one of my own. Somewhere no one could shut me out again. The next morning, a message came from Mom. Just one line. "Sweetheart, I know you're upset. I'll ask Celine to save you a slice of cake, okay?" Soft. Gentle. Like cotton. And yet, it cut deeper than any knife. I didn't reply. Not out of anger, but because I was used to it. Used to keeping the peace, even when the wrong was clear. Used to being told not to make a scene, not to spoil the mood, even as I was sinking. I threw on a hoodie and walked to the coffee shop down the street to clear my head. But that's where the truth found me. I didn't even have to look for it. She spent like 80 grand on that party, can you believe it? Bria's voice. My cousin. Clear as day. She took it from someone's trust fund. No one even noticed. My heart skipped a beat. Me. They were talking about me. I remembered what Grandpa once said. "This is for your future. Don't let anyone touch it." I believed him. I protected it. I didn't touch a dime, not even when I lost my job, when I couldn't make rent. And now, they spent it. On cake, on decorations, on champagne. I ran home, opened my laptop, logged into my bank account. On the surface, everything looked fine, but the access logs told the real story. Who logged in, from where, and when. Portland, my parents' house. 3 weeks ago, right when Celine started posting pictures about the big party prep. The chill didn't come from the drafty window, it came from my chest. So sharp, it stole my breath. Then the final message. Not an apology, not a shred of regret. Just one line from Celine. I thought you didn't care about money. I needed it more than you. I didn't need anyone to say anything else. I understood now. I wasn't forgotten. I was deliberately erased. I sat still in front of the computer screen, Celine's message still staring back at me like a cold slap to the face. You need it more than I do. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt empty. Betrayal from an enemy hurts, but betrayal from your own blood? That cuts deeper. And the silence from the rest of the family, mom, dad, kin, that's the coldest knife of all. But it wasn't the first time. I sat motionless as my mind rewound itself. The past didn't come back in order. It came back in order of pain. I remembered my 14th birthday. Everyone forgot. Mom was busy taking Celine to ballet tryouts. Dad was off with kin for soccer practice. I sat alone in the living room, wearing the dress I picked out a week earlier, with a single cupcake I bought, using my own savings. No one remembered. Not a single apology. I smiled when they came home and said, "It's okay, I understand." That was the first time I learned how to swallow everything. Then came the year I turned 22, when mom was hospitalized for thyroid surgery. Celine was in New York for an important workshop. Kin was on base. I was the one who took her to the doctor, who sat by her hospital bed all night, who bought porridge, changed her sheets, and still forced a smile so she wouldn't see how tired I was. No one asked if I was okay. They just said, "Good thing Amy's got it handled." That's when I began to understand. I wasn't someone they needed to love. I was someone they needed to be convenient. I wasn't loved for who I was. I was loved for what I could fix. Every time there was chaos, I was the first one they called. Mom cried, I listened. Dad exploded, I stayed silent. Celine had money trouble. I dipped into my savings to lend it for now. Kin was heartbroken. I spent 3 hours on the phone talking him through it. And when things settled down, I was quietly pushed aside. No one asked what I needed. No one thought I could be hurt. They were used to Amy who was fine, Amy who was tough, Amy who understood. I thought it was responsibility. Now I see it was just abandonment wrapped in duty. I walked over to the window looking out at Seattle's gray sky. Flakes of snow had just started to fall, as if something was shifting. But change doesn't start outside. It starts in me. There's one question I've avoided my entire life. If I stop holding everyone together, will they still stay with me? I already know the answer. And it hurts. I went back to my desk and opened the file I had named The Truth. Inside were screenshots, account logs, IP data, all proof that my father was the one who approved Celine's $80,000 withdrawal from my trust fund. One signature, one decision, no mistake. Just a choice. And I wasn't the one chosen. I've grown used to forgiveness. But this time, something in me broke. Not a crack. A collapse. Deliberate and clear. I don't want to be the strong one anymore. I don't want to be the shadow. I want, just once, to be the voice. This isn't about hatred, it's about dignity. The silence over the years has turned me into a faint echo of myself. But now, I'm rewriting who I am, line by line, proof by proof. As I stood to make tea, I saw an old photo, me, Celine, and Kin as kids, all of us laughing at a picnic. Back then, I believed family was forever. I used to think if I love enough, give enough, they'll love me back. I was wrong. Real love doesn't ask you to sacrifice your whole self just to be allowed in the room. Real love doesn't weigh who's worth more. And real family doesn't trade their daughter for a prettier dinner party. I sat back down, opened my phone, and texted Aloan, the only cousin I still trust. Save everything for me. Every line, every day. Let's see how long they think I'll stay silent. I've never seen myself so clearly. I don't need validation. I don't need to be invited. I don't want to walk into their party anymore. I want to walk away from the role I was forced to play for far too long. Endurance isn't a virtue. It's just a quiet blade that slowly slices away your worth. And I'm finally putting that blade down. Eloan texted back in under 10 minutes. Saved. Got Celine's story screenshots, Bria's post, and the message from Mom. Let me know if there's anything else you need. My hands were still shaking after I read it. Not from fear, but because a part of me, one I had never tapped into before, was waking up. A part that refused to be erased. That stopped making excuses for other people. That no longer tried to understand them or justify what they did. I opened my laptop. Not to write a pleading email, but to build a case. On the screen was a file titled The Truth, created yesterday. Only this time I didn't open it as someone on defense. I opened it like an investigator because I was the witness, the victim, and now the one holding the power to bring it all to light. I started listing date of trust account access 3 weeks ago. IP address, Portland, Oregon, matched my parents' house. Authorized party, Morton Faulkner, my father. Amount withdrawn, $80,000. Amount withdrawn, $80,000. No request, no approval from me. Purpose, Kin's welcome party, planned by Celine. I carefully took screenshots of each page, each access log, every login timestamp, and saved them in a newly renamed folder, Accountability. I paused, sat up straight, hands on the keyboard, mind stretched tight like a wire. This was no longer about emotions. This was a violation. I opened my email draft and typed a simple subject line. Request for investigation, unauthorized withdrawal from personal trust. I didn't hit send, not yet. I needed to be thorough. I went back to the original terms of the trust agreement, signed when I turned 18 after Grandpa passed and the account was transferred to me. The clause was crystal clear. All transactions require beneficiary approval. That beneficiary is me. My father broke that rule, and Celine spent the money he stole. I pictured Grandpa's face, the day he signed the trust paperwork. This is for you, Amy. Don't let anyone touch it. Not even family. I had failed him once, but not again. Just as I was lost in my notes, the phone rang. The name lit up on the screen. Dad. I stared at it. 1 second, 2, 5. I picked up. Do you really have to take it this far? He said immediately. His voice tight, no longer soft, no longer pretending to be warm. Just irritated that things weren't going his way. How far is this far, Dad? I asked, calm but steady. You sent something to the trust's lawyers. They called me this morning. Good, I said. That means they'll start investigating soon. You're overreacting. We're family. You should have talked to me first. I sat up even straighter. That line, we're family, used to melt me. Today, it passed through me like a broken train whistle in the distance. You used my money without asking, I said. Then threw a party with it that I wasn't even invited to. You didn't call me then, so why say now I should have talked to you first? Silence. For the first time, he didn't have a quick answer. This will tear the family apart, he finally said. You're turning everyone against each other. I gave a short laugh, not amused, but wide awake. No, Dad. Well, everyone turned their backs on me a long time ago. Now I'm just facing the truth. I hung up. That night, I blocked all calls and messages from Dad, Mom, Celine, and Bria. Not out of rage, but because I needed space, clean air to breathe. I stepped out onto the balcony. The Seattle wind was sharp and cold, but this time it didn't scare me. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. Not to calm down, but to feel, for the first time in years, that I was doing the right thing for me. Tomorrow I'll send the email. Tomorrow they'll all know. Amy isn't the easygoing big sister anymore. She's awake, and she remembers everything. For the first time, I'm not carrying the weight for anyone else. They'll face the consequences of their own choices. And me? I'm not stepping back ever again. The next morning, I woke up in silence. No alarm, no apology texts. Just a soft light filtering through the curtains and the rustling wind on the porch. Like the world itself was whispering, everything's different now. I made myself a cup of black coffee, sat by the window, and for the first time in days, I didn't feel suffocated. I didn't need to check my phone. I didn't have to figure out what to say to whom just to keep things peaceful. I wasn't the one holding it all together anymore. I got to just be me. I opened my phone, not because I expected anything, but just to check in on work. And just as I had a feeling, there was a new message from Aloan. Hey, Mom says Celine's freaking out. Dad's absolutely livid. Everyone's blaming you for messing everything up. But honestly, I think they're finally starting to feel a sliver of the consequences. I set the phone down, not with a sense of satisfaction, not with revenge, but with calm. I didn't need anyone to hurt like I did. I just needed fairness. And if getting that meant breaking the cycle of silence, then so be it. I was ready. Colorado. I landed in Breckenridge that afternoon. Snow blanketed rooftops and streets. The air was cold but clean, like a slap and a hug at the same time. When I stepped out of the taxi and stood in front of the wooden cabin I'd booked, I knew this wasn't an escape. This was the beginning of a different life. Inside the cabin was a world entirely unlike the Faulkner household. No overpowering voices, no suspended responsibilities, no weaponized silence, just warm wood, the scent of mint tea, the crackle of fire, and a version of me being reborn. That night, as I sipped red wine by the fireplace, a voice called out from behind me. Amy? I turned around. It was Kira, my college roommate. Seeing her again felt like finding the missing piece of myself I'd forgotten during all those years of being the older sister in someone else's family. We talked late into the night about work, about the loneliness of one-sided relationships, about the invisible weight of family expectation. You were always the one keeping everything calm, Kira said. But who was keeping you calm? That question hit something deep inside me. The next morning I woke early, wrapped a scarf around my shoulders, and sat on the balcony watching the snow fall. I picked up my phone, opened Instagram, and posted a photo from the cabin window. Snow-covered mountains, crystal blue sky, and a frozen lake so still it looked eternal. Caption: peace isn't given. Sometimes you earn it by walking away from people who'd rather ruin you than apologize. No tags, no names, but anyone who needed to understand would understand. A few minutes later, messages started pouring in. A former coworker. You've always handled everything with grace. They didn't deserve you. A college friend. Sometimes family is the first place we learn to stay silent, and the first place we need to unlearn it. Even Uncle Mike, the only decent one on Dad's side, Truth always finds its way out. Proud of you. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt right. That evening, Kira and I sat at a small cafe on the mountainside with the soft yellow lights, wool upholstered chairs, and the smell of fresh cinnamon waffles. She placed a folder in front of me, a design contract for a nonprofit focused on housing for women. It's women led, remote friendly, and they respect personal boundaries. They're looking for someone with real strength, Kira said. I didn't even have to think. I smiled. I'm in. It wasn't just a job, it was a step forward. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to rebuild myself on a foundation that didn't require sacrifice. A few days later, I returned to Seattle, just to pack up the past. I only kept what felt alive: books, my laptop, solo photos. The rest, family portraits, fake thank you cards, I left behind, unburdened. I looked at an old photo of the three of us as kids. I was the one with the forced smile. Looking back now, it was clear. I'd learned to fake being okay from the very beginning. I gently touched the face in the photo and whispered, "You deserve better, and I'll be the one to give that to you." I didn't abandon my family. I just walked away from a role that no longer fit. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I fit. I was sitting in a cafe in the town of Breckenridge, a place that was starting to feel like I belonged, when my phone started buzzing. Not a message, a storm of notifications. Aloan was the first to text. Bria just posted, no names, but you should see it. I tapped into Instagram. My heart didn't race. There was only a cold readiness settling in. I'd known this moment would come. The moment they'd stop quietly cutting me out of the story and start rewriting it on their own terms. Bria had posted a photo from the party. Everyone laughing around the cake table, warm golden lights glowing. Caption: some people let jealousy poison bloodlines. I hope they find peace, not by destroying others. I didn't need to be tagged to know. They were talking about me. One of Celine's friends commented, "Not everyone deserves a seat at the table, especially not those who burn it down just to be seen." I sat still. No shaking, no anger, just a deep sadness. Not because they were wrong, but because they truly believed they were right. I opened the receipts folder, where I'd saved every screenshot, withdrawal slip, text, and access log. I sent them to Aloan with one line: "Keep this version, we'll need it." That night, I stepped out onto the cabin porch. Snow had started falling again, but this time I didn't feel cold. I picked up my phone, opened Instagram, and posted a photo, a view of the mountains from my bedroom window. Caption: peace isn't given. Sometimes you earn it by walking away from people who'd rather ruin you than apologize. No names, no drama, no tags, but the words cut like a blade. And anyone who needed to understand did. Within 2 hours, the post had spread. A former colleague commented, "Always admired how you kept your dignity when others tried to drag you through the mud." A college classmate DM'd, "They can rewrite the story, but they can't change the truth. Thank you for speaking up." And a message from Uncle Mike, "Proud of you. The truth doesn't need to scream, it just needs to be said at the right time." I didn't feel victorious. I felt released. The next morning, Aloan messaged again. "My mom says the party's fallen apart. Decor's ruined." The caterer walked out. Celine had a breakdown. Dad said, "Amy's stirring trouble, tearing the family apart." I looked at the message, then sighed. They still think I'm the problem. They still don't see. It's what they did in the dark that made the light inevitable. I opened my laptop, composed one final email to the trust board. CC'd every relative on my father's side. Subject: request for audit of unauthorized withdrawal from personal trust. Body: On the 4th, a transaction of $80,000 was withdrawn from the personal trust established in my name by my grandfather, Thomas Faulkner. The individual responsible is Morton Faulkner, without my consent or authorization. Attached are all relevant proofs: login history, IP address registered to Morton's residence, withdrawal confirmations, and Celine's Instagram story referencing party expenses. This is no longer a family matter. This is a legal issue. I attached all screenshots, logs, and a copy of the trust terms. Then I clicked send. No anxiety, no trembling, just a strange, quiet calm in my chest. 10 minutes later, the flood began. Eloan. They're freaking out. Morton lost his speaking slot at the summit because of the financial scandal. Celine's sponsorship was pulled. My mom's crying, saying she's ruined the family. I let out a quiet laugh. I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped cleaning up the mess they left behind. That afternoon, I got a reply from the legal advisor. We confirm receipt of your submission. An internal investigation will be initiated. In the meantime, please refrain from responding to personal messages related to the matter. We will represent your interests. I read those lines again and again. We will represent your interests. For the first time, I felt someone was standing beside me. That night, I posted another photo. Me standing on a snow-covered trail behind the cabin with painted mountains in the distance. Caption: silence isn't noble when it protects injustice. I didn't check the comments. I didn't need anyone to defend me anymore. I had defended myself. I wasn't the troublemaker they said I was. I was the one who dared to break the silence. The one who rewrote the story. With truth, not convenience. And for the first time in years, I felt free.